And say, okay, then tell me you're ready to.
Okay, guys, we're ready to go. Thank you, Jim.
Go ahead and go.
So we're streaming?
We are streaming. Yes, we are streaming.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 1:22 p.m. And let's move on to item 2 of the agenda, roll call.
John Glidewell.
Sorry, my mute. Here, present.
Cindy Wagner.
Present.
Chair Marcus.
Present.
There were no communications received or filed.
Oops, we missed a board member.
Oh, sorry. Oh, who am I? Travis?
No, Vice Chair
John Dixon. I'm sorry, guys. All this got me a little twisted up. Here we go. Okay, John Dixon.
Here.
Wonderful. All right, moving on to item 3, communications received and filed.
I might have something too. Did you already do? Well, I'm sorry. Let me just jump to the agenda. I'll.
Okay. County staff, any communications received or filed?
No, there was not.
Alrighty. Matters from the public. Does any members of the public or any board members have any matters to bring up?
There's nobody who has contacted us.
Okay. Moving on to item 5A, discussion and direction concerning the draft annual report for the upcoming fiscal year 2021-2022. My suggestion for this, and because we lost a little time, but was my suggestion prior to it, that that we go through the report page by page. We get a quick verbal summary from Travis Scott, and at the end of each page, if any of the board members have any notes or questions, that we address them then. Does that sound like a good plan, board members?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I'd like to, if I can, for me, it's fine. Can I just go back to the agenda? I thought I missed something because I stepped away for half a second. But I don't see it on the agenda, approval of the last minutes, unless I'm missing
It'll be item 5B after the draft.
Oh, it's okay. Approval of the draft minutes. I see. I thought it was approval of the draft. Okay.
Worded
Okay.
on.
Okay, that's fine.
They are draft minutes until they're approved. So.
Okay, it's just later in the agenda than I expected. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know it's usually right around roll call, and I guess the structure of this is formatted in our bylaws, so that's why it's done this way.
Well, it's to the point of last time I was at the meeting, but it doesn't show me on the minutes, and I thought of it when doing roll call this time too. So I just want to make sure I don't miss that.
Okay, we'll address that when we get to item 5B. Thank you, John.
And I agree with the approach of going through page by page as you outlined, Marcus. Thank you.
Okay, great. Cindy, that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Travis, do you want to share screen so it's up in front of us for all of us as you go through it?
Yes, if that works for everybody, I will share my screen.
Okay.
And is this visible?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just need to shuffle some things around really quickly from screen to screen. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go through, and we can go page by page. Okay, of course, table of contents, that'll come very last once we put this into delivery format. The next thing I have in here is the forward that was requested by John Glidewell at the last meeting from me about the actions taken due to the pandemic on behalf of MCTC. So I summarized that here. Did you want me to go over that item by item, or have you had the chance to read that, and are you ready to provide feedback on this part?
The latter. I think that's probably good. Hopefully all of our board members have had a chance to review it. And there's so many individual details here. Yeah, summarizing it all would basically be going through it all. So,
Right.
so I'll start with just two notes I have regarding the MCTC entered into a contract with WIPFLI Financial Services to act as the organization's financial services contractor. I'm just unclear as to what this is, and can you just give a brief explanation?
Sure. So prior to this, our administrative services manager handled all in-office bookkeeping functions, so accounts payable, accounts receivable, credit card reconciliation, etc. And when that position was eliminated due to shelter in place and the pandemic, we needed to shift all those duties out of house.
And thus reducing the expense considerably.
Yes, because we no longer have a salaried position.
Okay, and then the question is the following: the ED negotiated exits from contracts with marketing consultants. Were these like full exits, or were they like deferments or putting on pause until things got back to normal? Or
Full
what?
exits.
What's that?
Full exits from the contracts.
Okay, and then
And all marketing services have been brought in-house.
okay. That was my only two questions or notes. Anybody else have any?
Just a wrong word usage, Travis, if you want that now, or I could just text it to you. Whatever you
Nope,
prefer.
right now is great, and I'll make that
Okay.
change.
Okay. On the last page of your forward, the last point, due to the number of visitors to the county and the lack of tourism infrastructure, he changed that to infrastructure, INFRA.
Good eye, Cindy.
Thank you.
Okay, any other notes before we move on to next pages? Hearing none, let's continue on.
Okay, executive summary, that will come after the report is complete. Then we go into the overview. Says why we prepare this report. And we just, basically, I've updated the information here. Talks about what is going to be presented. Then we move on and we go to the impact of the bid on lodging and the tourism industry. I've updated the numbers with the most recent numbers from the Dean Runyon report commissioned by Visit California. I go over and explain those numbers here and explain the decrease in the last quarter and bring up the pandemic and shelter in place here, discuss that.
Travis, if I may, what was the projected income for that year pre the COVID?
Yeah.
1.5.
Hold on.
Sorry, I don't have the old bid report open.
That's all right.
Well, yeah, 18% more. Well, no, that's
Well,
not.
no, it was an 18% decrease year over year. Sorry. Just a second here.
I was just curious because let's see, we're looking at it's like a 1.2 million.
This year we'll be
Revenue.
looking at a $1.2 million budget, down from about off the top of my head, 1.4.
Well, that 1.2 million that was brought in, about 3.5 months of that year was pandemic, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then this current fiscal year, it's going to be really minimal. But then we're looking at hopefully the fiscal year we're producing this report for will hopefully be back up there.
Correct.
Right. Okay, just want to make sure that was clear.
And just to clarify for everybody, especially Cindy, as we're going through this report, it's interesting that we'll talk about calendar years. We'll also talk about fiscal years, the way that this report straddles the two. It's kind of written over for a long period of time, just to make that clarification right at the beginning. So I talk about the establishment and the requirements of the lodging bid. This is all basically boilerplate stuff that stays from year to year. Then we go into the historical overview and the implementation. Each past year stays the same. Then I add my 2020 statement, which would be this one right here. So MCTC continued to achieve great success in its digital and social marketing campaigns, realizing larger than ever success with marketing of the annual Crab Feast and Whale Festivals. The City of Point Arena was returned to the bid Business Improvement District at the Board of Supervisors meeting on December 8th, 2020. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, under the direction of the MCTC board, the executive director executed significant organizational changes designed to allow MCTC to reemerge from the pandemic in a viable state to begin the process of marketing and welcoming tourism back to Mendocino County safely. The organization works side by side with other community partners to develop and deploy safety campaigns surrounding the pandemic. Before I move on from that section, is there anything that anybody wants to comment on, ask questions, or suggest changes?
I have one. Travis, I think that's a nice summary you've written. I'm still going back to trying to provide as much context for future readers about this historic situation that we're in. And would it be appropriate for you to identify which organizations you work side by side with, and to provide examples of some of the safety campaigns that were created?
I'm happy to do so. I did offer that in the foreword, and we do talk about it later in the report as well. So I don't know if you want how in depth you guys want to get. It's historically been pretty short overviews.
Right. No, and I'm not sure of the answer to that part. I guess I would be very interested as a reader because I think you did so much to salvage the operation that you have, and it would just be interesting for future readers to know, just to be fully aware of sort of the context that you were trying to work with, and to provide a little extra evidence of the scope of what you've tried to accomplish over this past fiscal year, and how difficult it has been. Seems like it would be owed a little bit more content. It's sort of out of the norm from the bullet points that have been listed, but I don't know. I'm sort of trying to make the argument that is justified because of the circumstances. And maybe this isn't the right place for it, and maybe we don't want to go that route, but I just would like to see a little bit more content at some point. I'm happy to help you develop that, but I'm just curious what this board thinks about including more of it in this report.
John, I think you're mostly. I'm mostly in agreement with you. I think that needs to be addressed, and I think there might be sections further down where some of it is addressed. But if there is an effort to make a more specific section to really focus on that, I'm in agreement with that. I think though that as this is an overview, specifically related to the bid, not so much the whole DMO and the surrounding groups. It's more of a oversight of when the bid came into law, and then how the surrounding structures evolved, and 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 once again, I'm saying it's an overview, and so I think we should keep it to the point, to simplified, and then address what you're mentioning in probably another section.
Okay, yeah, and maybe the forward is enough, and maybe we don't want to dwell on this and create these sections that are sort of aside from the goal of this document, which is to guide future progress. There are sections that go over the historical performance and operation strategy and decisions behind making recommendations and all that, but I'm not bringing it up as a request yet. I guess I'm just trying to see if there's enough there for us to discuss adding sort of a new direction with this report. But I'm also kind of wondering, I'm flip-flopping. I'm wondering if we just kind of want to do our best to forget about it so we can move on and focus on better things.
I think it's important to recognize it in that, if we were to look back at this report 10 years later and be like, what year was that we had the COVID? That it's important that it be addressed. I'm even go as far as to say that it be listed as potentially one of the accomplishments that the MCT, in light of everything, was able to financially survive, not have to shut down, didn't go out of business, and was successful because of the choices and decisions and cutbacks that were made. That's kind of where I feel maybe that's where it should be. And I'm looking at the 2020 overview of the bid section, and I'm wondering if even that first sentence should be included in that, or whether that should be left somewhere else. I see the point of the history of the bid, having that the city of Point Arena was returned to the bid, and maybe even just something simplified. Not much change with the bid itself happened this year. The governance structures stayed the same as they were the previous year, with the bid advisory board, with MCTC, and then related to that, the city of Point Arena was added back. But the achievements of MCTC seem like they should be more under the section that's MCTC accomplishments versus listed in this little section here. Does anyone else feel that same way?
Well, I see what you're saying, but then we're going back and we're changing the structure that we've built since 2016, let's say, in overviewing some of the highlights for the year in this section.
That's true. You say we're set a precedent by previously mentioning it, MCTC,
right.
Strategic planning process. Yeah. So it's a general overall history of the direction of both the bid and the DMO that the bid provides funding for.
After this year, the forward goes away, right? So that all that content that is included as a forward for this report will not be referenced in future reports. Maybe is there a way for us to preserve it as an appendix in reference to this bullet point or later on in the report? So we don't lose that content or something along those lines?
I think that's acceptable.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Marcus agrees.
Okay. Yeah, I would be satisfied with that. And, depending on who is, the successor to this group down the line, if it's just really not needed or if it feels like it's just sort of clunky, then it could be dropped. But as it exists as an appendix, at least for now, I think it serves as a really nice, just added reminder that we really banded together and our ED did a great job during this crisis.
I agree, John.
Okay, thanks. That was my only comment there.
Okay.
Okay. Moving down, new organizational structure or chart, drastically changed. And then
Travis, Marcus Mainland, Travis, just to be clear, drastically changed from executive director and below, correct?
Yes. Okay. Then we move on to the MCTC accomplishments. talk about our overall goals and strategic objectives. And those basically have carried over year to year since 2017 under our current strategic plan. So this section hasn't changed much. However, I did want to bring up one thing that I realized was still in this report, and that was the word coastal under number 1. And, you know, MCTC and this advisory board represents the entire county and every lodging establishment that pays into the bid. And so I don't think that keeping coastal in the report is appropriate. And I wanted to seek your suggestion or advice on that.
This is Marcus. I'm in agreement with you. We are more than just a coastal county, and perhaps then we should change the wording to coastal and inland, or
I was thinking premier, one of California's premier destinations, period. No, just taking that word out.
I've got to say I like the word coastal because it narrows down in a way when it's generally used as to where a destination might be, and there's a lot of different destinations in California that are not coastal. So I do kind of personally like that that's included, and that's just my opinion. But perhaps we can add to it that this county is more than just a coastal county. So, but how to do that, I haven't had much thought on.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that highlighted as something for us to think about and come back to. Moving on.
Can I ask a question on that? Maybe, I don't know if we can resolve it now if instead of coming back to it, but I have a thought. I mean, it's interesting coming from Marcus, who's not on the coast, saying that he likes the coastal word. Noted. But I think it sounds like what you're saying, Marcus, is that if somebody were to look at this who's, say, from somewhere else, Arizona or New York, something like that, where the county touches or borders the California coast versus something like Tahoe or something else, right? Is that what you mean? Napa or something. So it's a coastal county, is what I hear you saying. But what Travis maybe is trying to do by removing it sounds like is, you know, it would just essentially say it's a California destination and not give it any descriptor, I guess. So is there a way to sort of do both? Which I think what Travis is trying to do is say it's not just coastal, but there's the whole inland part and the wine country part. Travis, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so I think it maybe, I mean, let's see, continue to effectively position Mendocino County as one of California's premier. How about this? Like Northern California, because it's not Southern or whatever, Northern California coastal counties. I mean, as opposed to like Mendocino County as a
North Coast destinations.
The North Coast destination. I see your point, John, and I've got to admit, when I first was reading through this, I said to myself after reading that line 1, why are we focusing on promoting just the coast? But then as I read through it more, I realized it was just a description of our whole county, kind of. But I don't want people to read this and think, oh, look, they're just trying to effectively position and market the coastal portions of our county. I want to make sure that people don't interpret it that way. But that being said, I do think it stands out. If someone were looking at all the different destinations in California, it stands out that it is a, coastal and inland. But then again, this is just the wording here in the report. So it's not like we're using this for our marketing.
Right.
So perhaps it's fine if it just says, as a premier destination.
Okay.
Right?
I think that's fine too. As you say, it's not a marketing piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we all in agreement with removing the coastal then? Yeah, looks like you did it. Okay.
Great. Moving on to tactical goals. related to our strategic initiatives and plans. I talk about the accomplishments for the 1920 fiscal year. This is where I talk about the decrease in NTOT and bid assessment. I talk about our public relations and marketing milestones. Then I bring on the pandemic. And this is where I kind of start integrating some of the work that we did with other groups and the ad hoc of the Board of Supervisors, the reopening campaign, Safe Mendocino, Mask Up Mendocino.
Travis, I have a note.
Sure.
Question about MCLA. Technically, I don't believe MCLA is a board or an organization operating currently in accordance to its bylaws. It's actually, whether the organization still exists. But I know that some of the resources from MCLA have been used to coordinate and network and communicate with lodging owners. I'm just wondering if we should or should not include the acronym MCLA and instead replace it with coordination between lodging owners or something along those lines. John Dixon, do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I'm just reading again. I have to flip-flop between the PDF that I have open and the shared screen because the shared screen doesn't come in clear for me. So where I found it just now, let me see, is
bottom of page 11. Just in general, the reference to the organization of MCLA in this report.
It's on page 4 also. I just did a quick find, and it's on page 4 also. Saying, just to go back to that point on the letter, the team worked in collaboration with MCLA to help guide the reopening of the process. And in that collaboration, creating and launch Safe Mendocino. So it's referenced above, and then let me find that. It's actually in here 6 times, is what my find tells me. Also on page 8. Twice. Oh, but this is historical. Never mind.
Yeah, if reference is historical, then that's fine. But
yeah, okay, I see. And then on 11. So let me read that. Thanks on that.
I just have, for some reason, what's the word I'm looking for? A concern. Just not really that we're referencing an organization that technically isn't really an organization or operating. It's really just become a communication source or a network for lodging owners. So I'm just wondering if we should call it that. That would be my opinion.
I think number one, it is in existence, and I am still officially the elected president. We've been starting to use the name just because it's a good name for the group that's organizing every Monday as an association of lodging members in Mendocino County. MCLA makes sense. There also is work to redo the bylaws. We've had some planning sessions, and because of holidays and things, it hasn't yet happened where we have new bylaws, but that's happening. I think for consistency, since the group is referenced previous, and it is meant to be something that will continue in the future, and there is a structure, unlike, frankly, years ago, there was really nothing until the pandemic came where nobody really met. But so for those reasons, I think it's okay that it is still an organization, if not in the same name, if it matters, if not in the same name under the same bylaws, but under that sort of working name, it's been used. So I think it's okay to leave it in there to describe the group that's come together, again, as an association of lodging operators.
And just to add one more thing to that, VMC did undertake the updated contact information project this year. And in our representation of that, the information was going to be shared with the MCLA group to disseminate information. So just kind of backing up, we've kind of talked about that group in our communications with partners and stakeholders as MCLA.
Right, and the MCLA list, as you say, Marcus, the assets of the group, which is this distribution list, listserv has been using that name too. So I think for that consistency, I would be okay with it. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's okay. And not that I want to promote it necessarily, but I think it's okay. The other comment I would make about it, though, is that after MCLA on page 11, on the last line, there should be a comma after the A, because it's not the ad hoc of the Board of Supervisors. It's meant to be a comma there.
It's supposed to say "and ad hoc," isn't it?
No, comma, and ad hoc of the BS, comma, and other business leaders. So for me, there's two commas.
Okay.
And
You got it?
Travis, just another wrong word usage there. You might have seen this already, but rather than saying when through a reorganization process, I think you meant went through a reorganization process.
Thank you.
Okay. And John, if I may, I appreciate that you kind of get my point of where I'm coming from. And I, for one, would love to see MCLA restructure its bylaws to be more fitting for members to join and continue to operate in accordance to its bylaws again. So there can be good coordination between the lodging owners without, by a group of lodging owners. So if you need help with that, I'm happy to partake. I just had concern about, using it and referencing it when it hasn't, in the recent past years, been operating in accordance to its bylaws of having the regular scheduled meeting and so
Right.
forth.
I think if it was something that was not on a resurgence, then I agree with you. It should sort of go away. But I use the term it's been on cold storage, but it's really past that now. It's really coming back, I would say, and it will probably in the first quarter. And I did hear that you were volunteering to help, so thank you for that.
Hey, as there, sorry, on the side notes, in the regularly scheduled Monday meetings, perhaps, and I don't know if you've done this already, perhaps suggesting that that certain people become members of the MCLA as it currently is structured now, in order to get it operating again, to adjust its bylaws in any way that might help it continue for the future.
Right. So what we did is the Leads Plus group, which is the folks who sort of started the whole thing in March, and then the calls and whatnot, and then also there's leads of the different subgroups. So that we've already met actually at least once, and one other time was scheduled.
Great.
So yes, that's actually happening.
Great. That's good news. Okay. Sorry. Won't take any more time on that.
So I go on to talk about our accreditation process, and that leads us into the categories of expenses and where we land in expenses and expense categories. This year, I am excited to report that DMAI has created a new portal for us to send our information into them, and they aggregate everything and then spit it back out, and they will do that annually now, so we won't wait for a report from them or a financial analysis from them every 3 years. They haven't finished that process for this year. Everybody hasn't entered their data. So as soon as that comes back, which will come back, basically as everybody, closes their fiscal years and gets things wrapped up, that will come to us. So I expect that to come back in the next month or so. I have submitted BMC's data, just so everybody knows. So that will come here. I talk about public relations. Again, as soon as I get the final report from CO at the end of this year, or for the end of 2020, I will insert that information, create the graph and insert that information. Same with social media. I go on to talk about our sales department and how we use that, or what the point of that is, and why it's there. These are all standard things that stay each year. Then we go into year-to-date progress for this year. Talk about our public relations again through December 31st. So I'll need that information. And then I go into some of the accomplishments for advertising and marketing. I referenced the marketing plan to begin with. I talk about lodging being able to reopen in June. That we created our new campaign. We created a reopening campaign to go along with that. However, that campaign was tabled. Then we redirected our efforts to coming up with a new fall and winter shoulder season campaign, which we did start in October, ran through November 30th. When we were going to replace that with our Room to Roam winter campaign. And I made the decision to not continue marketing due to the surge of COVID-19 and the close of tourism in the majority of the state. We continue to communicate with our partners and stakeholders, identifying new business openings when they are, and we add those. Social media, I'll have year-over-year metrics that will come in here. I talk about partnerships, where I maintain close ties, what boards I sit on or associations, and as well as other staff, that we discontinued in-person visits to stakeholder properties. Sales goals and ROI are undetermined at this point in time because we can't actually get out and sell, and it's not appropriate to sell to the group market. Visitor Services is currently working on options for updated gateway signs at the entrances to the county.
Travis,
Yep.
I forget, are those gateway signs owned and maintained as part of a collaboration of multiple county agencies, or?
No, those are in our county contract, owned by Visit Mendocino, or as required by our county contract, owned and managed and maintained by Visit Mendocino County.
Okay, I for some reason in my head thought that the organization, that it's renewed every year, isn't supposed to retain long-term assets. Am I mistaken?
Well, it's a sign. I wouldn't necessarily call it an asset.
If the county approved it, then it must be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they have, they've been up for years. As of note, we did have to have the Highway 20 sign removed last year because the property was sold, and that's why the Visitor Services Group is looking for, refreshed sign locations and refreshed signs. Then we get into district boundaries and assessments. All of this is boilerplate required in there. Then we go down to the preliminary plan for the upcoming fiscal year.
Oh, Travis, sorry, question about section B. This is boilerplate coming straight out of the bid law verbiage and Mendocino County Code?
Correct.
So the general promotion of hotels, letter A, the general promotion of hotels operating within the district, is that it's designed, I imagine, to be an equitable promotion of all hotels, not specific allowing.
I would imagine that's what's meant by the verbiage in the law.
Okay. And I'm just curious, what circumstances would exist where a hotel gets more specific promotion from VMC over others? Is there?
Clarify for me what you're asking.
If there is specific mention or promotion of certain hotels in the county through VMC over other hotels, I'm just curious if that exists, and what the circumstances would be. Like, did that hotel contribute or buy ads or whatnot through VMC? I just very adamant that VMC, its goal, and that it market the hotels equitably. Is basically what I'm getting at.
Right, and we do. I guess I'm not quite sure how to answer your question in reference to this boilerplate that comes from the law.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And well, my question actually wasn't specifically. It brought up to my mind if VMC, so separate from this, does VMC specifically market specific hotels in the county, and what would be the criteria leading them to do that? Is what I'm asking, I guess.
Well, of course we market specific hotels now, but we try to spread that marketing equally among all of the hotels.
Okay.
But as of course, if a writer is interested in Hotel A,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to set that writer up at Hotel A to get a story.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm also going to suggest that they visit Hotel B, C, and D and pitch and sell that. But are they always going to bite? No.
Okay, and you would choose B, C, and D equitably. I mean, you would rotate those B, C, and Ds, or you would recommend them because they're in the general region of that one.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. All right, great. Sounds like you're definitely on top of that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I go down and I talk about our strategic plan, what that has done for us and what we're looking for, or what we use it for. Let's see. And those, then I go through each objective, imperative, and initiative, and talk about what, how we've adjusted this year, how we've addressed each of those imperatives, initiatives, and objectives. I can read through these if you like. Well, that's going to be a long process.
No, I think the best thing to do is what we did with the earlier section that had a lot of specific points that we trust that the board members have had a chance to review it. And if we have any notes, I guess, regarding, what are we talking about here? Pages 17.
Well, let's go by section 5, which is preliminary plan for fiscal year 21-22. Which on my page is 16.
Yes, so number 9 would be part of that, right? Yes. So I'm scrolling down multiple pages.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 on the preliminary plan. Just curious, how much of a workload or time is being spent by VMC to pursue number 9? Yeah.
Well,
cannabis promotion. Working with MCPA on cannabis promotion. Just curious.
Well, just to give you an update. MCTC has officially written a letter requesting that MCPA officially transfer that responsibility of promotion over to us along with the funds. MCPA is currently working with an attorney to make sure that they're dissolving their organization properly and making the right motions to writing the right motions for the board to make so that this can be done clean, clear, and legal.
All right. And what funds existed for this? They acquired funds to promote cannabis, or this was existing funds from
These were
previous
existing
years?
funds from that organization.
Okay, and then I did have another question in Part B of that. It seems like Part B is a subsection of 9. I presume it's not supposed to be.
No, it's B. It is section A, then B.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. For me, it reads as a subsection of number 9. But I imagine you're still working on all the tabbing and spacing and.
Well, and again, major formatting will come in at the end when
Okay.
it's removed from this document and put into InDesign.
Perfect. All right. So we can hold off on formatting things until we get towards the end.
That'll be the very last thing we do before it goes to design.
You got it. Sorry, once again, so in section B, I did have, I guess, a note that we don't list an amount of an estimate for the upcoming fiscal year in this section right here in the paragraph for the bid estimate and the paragraph for the match estimate.
Right. I did not, and that is a great note.
I would love to see that.
Well,
And an explanation of the estimate of how we got there.
so the estimated bid revenue is what was collected last year, according to this document.
Who came to that estimate?
Well, this report comes to that estimate by the bylaws and the county contract.
Huh.
The county I believe it's the bylaws. This is where Adrian would be really helpful. Require that we write a report or our budget based on the prior year's receipts.
Finished prior year, the most finished fiscal year.
Correct.
It says that. I thought the estimates were kind of determined on multiple factors, but
Nope.
but I will defer to your knowledge. Yes. Okay.
So these numbers, 809 and 404, become the basis for our next budget.
Okay. Gotcha. Is that clear to all the board members listed in that, or does it need just a quick workaround to be a little more clear?
Oh, I'm okay. I don't really have any notes for that.
Okay.
And it says right here, the
I would
budget
still maybe a sentence, Travis, in my opinion, that these will be the basis of the upcoming fiscal year estimates, or per bid law.
The budget contained in this bid annual report is based on actual FY 1920 bid assessments. The county matching funds for the same period are XYZ.
Okay. I guess that is clear. Okay. All right, let's move on then.
And then I talk about, this is all boilerplate again. Contributions from Mendocino County matching funds. I talk about totals from the prior fiscal year. Talk about estimates for future revenue. Then I talk about the proposed budget for the next year. And this is where we can, Marcus, can I talk about what I wanted to bring up?
Section D.
Yes.
Yeah, I think before we get any of the board's opinion on that proposed budget, we probably should get your information on how that might be changing.
Sure. So based on the prior year's collections, that would require MCTC to write a budget for $1.213 million. And I have made a suggestion to my finance committee, and they have directed me, I have made a suggestion to my finance committee that through this pandemic, we have absolutely shrunk the organization to its most bare minimum. We know what it costs on a monthly basis to operate at an absolute baseline to get us through. And by that, or with that, we also know that the reserve contingency fund required by the county contract is not enough to last us any longer than about,
5 months.
5 months. So my suggestion to the board, to my finance committee, and they agree, is that we write a budget on just over $1 million. It's about $1,044,000 this year. We plan on taking that extra $143,000 and moving that over into a contingency fund. And those funds are used in an emergency situation where we aren't receiving any bid or match payments from the county. And that I suggest that we do that for 2 years from this point forward. That would get us to 1 full year of operating reserves at a baseline if there were no income.
Which is, Travis, about $34,000 a month, $400,000 a year?
Yeah, about $439,000.
And this would be a separate contingency fund?
It would be held in the same reserve account,
Mhm.
but it would be encumbered under the designation of emergency or something of that sort.
On the books, it would be recorded separately.
Correct.
And so this change is still happening. The official change for being approved by the MCTC board.
So I have written that budget based on my finance committee's direction and their agreement with my recommendation. And we are going to look over that budget first round next Thursday at our annual meeting.
Okay. So then my suggestion, I guess, to you and for the board members is maybe you, in the next draft that we look over, adjust to this and include that explanation and all the data that you just explained to us for us to review. And by then also we might know if the MCTC board has officially adopted it. Does that sound like a good course of action to everybody?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I don't have the thumbs up icon that I'm used to in other Zoom calls, but yeah, it sounds
I
good.
don't have that either. It's interesting.
Yes,
John, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
My next question. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna ask that question yet.
Okay. All right, let's continue on.
One thing at a time. So anyways, the budget will go here. Then I go into the actions taken in response to this board's recommendations, actionable by MCTC. So I do the status updates, just like was requested last year, to make that very clear where we're at. Do you want me to read through each of these, or are you guys ready to provide feedback on these?
Once again, I'm hoping the other board members feel this way, that we all trust each other to have previously reviewed them, and that we could just go through section by section and provide input without you needing to summarize. Or
Can I ask? I'm sorry to be the odd man out here, but I admit that I probably skimmed through part of this and would sure appreciate if everyone else has time just to go through this section. I would like to go through in detail if possible.
Understood, John. And yes, remember we are all volunteers running our own businesses, so no worries if sometimes we don't have the time to necessarily review through.
I appreciate it.
It's a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, happy. It seems like we're at 2:16, so we're making good time. We're a little more than halfway through the report. So yeah, I'm good with that suggestion, John. Travis?
Okay. So the first, do you want me to All right, I'll start and we'll see how this
Summarize. Can you just summarize the recommendation and and then the status update? If you can.
Okay, no, sure. Number one, bring Point Arena back into the bid, and that's done. That's basically the status update. At the February 8th, 2020 meeting, the Board of Supervisors adopted an ordinance amending Chapter 5.140 Mendocino County Lodging Business and Improvement District to modify the boundaries of the district to include the incorporated areas of the city of Point Arena to provide for the levying of assessments on hotel businesses within the city of Point Arena. Mendocino County Tourism Commission is working with PBS and the Treasurer Tax Collector to reinstate lodging properties and tourism-facing businesses into the MCTC marketing pool.
Great.
Okay. With the passing of the ordinance, MCTC will work with county staff to incorporate the verbiage private campgrounds so that we can collect a bid on those. And I have this highlighted because I am working with Adrian right now and to make sure that we're on track for this. But the current
question. Okay, so we might be able to say in that before the report is finalized, yes, private grounds have been approved and are being assessed, or they are not, or in the process of.
Yes, we will. So this basically says where we're at right now. At the time, Planning and Building Services and County Council are drafting the change to the ordinance verbiage.
Okay.
That's where we're at this point in time.
Okay.
Now, yes, there could be a status update between now and the finalization of this report. Do I think that's going to happen with the pandemic and vaccine distribution and Adrian's workload? Most likely not.
Okay.
MCTC staff. The next one is we'll work with Civitas or comparable consultants to explore the possibility of transition to the 1994 bid law. The board of directors acknowledges this and have found that at this time it was not appropriate for the organization to even touch this recommendation because of the pandemic.
Makes sense. Hey, Travis, I really like that the status updates are highlighted red. Is that something for us, or is that something you want to leave in the report?
No, that was just to make it easier to find things. My highlighting is just things for us to find easily.
Okay, so that won't exist in the final report?
No.
Okay,
No.
Just curious.
Yeah, no. Let's see.
Well, the word status update will be caps and bolded, just not the red.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll work with the Coraggio group to extend the strategic plan is the next recommendation. I initiated the first meeting in February 2020. Following that meeting, we began the necessary planning with Coraggio group to the next to take the next steps, and we're currently in that process. The next strategic plan is hopefully going to be released March or April. Continue to assess the return on investment of a reorganized sales department. And as a part of the restructure due to COVID-19, the MCTC board suspended this initiative until the board deems that it is appropriate to hire a salesperson to spotlight Mendocino County as a group tourism destination again. MCTC form an ad hoc committee to investigate and explore any and all possible ways to enhance revenue for tourism promotion. The MCTC's Organizational Development Committee engaged in discussion and the initial steps in forming an ad hoc committee to address this initiative in January of 2020. In March of 2020, the second meeting was scheduled to further the discussion and action, but due to the pandemic, the committee canceled that meeting and requested this recommendation move to a year following the pandemic. MCTC Board of Directors engage a discussion and potential action item adjusting the board meeting schedule, which had been done. So at the June 2020 meeting, the MCTC board took action to move their monthly board meetings to the second Wednesday of the month. And then a further change happened in September of 2020, moving those to the second Thursday.
So thus, now currently, the regularly scheduled meeting does not conflict with any of the Board of Supervisors meetings or bid advisory board meetings.
Correct.
Do we need to say that? Or am I just being too nitpicky?
Well, I think it's implied that we changed it.
Achieved, that it was
The
achieved.
request.
Okay.
I think it's a nice summary statement, though. This happened, so now there are no conflicts, or whatever you want to say. But it's fair to make things explicit. I think always not a bad thing.
Okay. Then we go into recommendations actionable by the county. No action necessary. And again, no action necessary based on the two status updates and
Based on number 6 of the previous section.
yeah, based
Okay.
on the answers previously provided. These two status update or 3 status updates will come from Adrian or Planning and Building Services. So I don't know how we want to discuss that. In previous years, we've discussed these in these status updates in these meetings, and Adrian's kind of given us her verbal status update, and we take those and write them into the report. With Adrian absent, I'm not quite sure what that looks like on behalf of Planning and Building Services.
Do Planning and Building Services staff in this meeting have any information regarding these updates?
No, I'm sorry, I don't, but I will write down any questions that you guys have and also talk to Adrian about maybe being able to give me status updates prior to our next meetings, so that, the communication is still happening with her absence.
Great. And if it's, I realize she has an incredibly heavy schedule right now. And the responsibility of managing the vaccine, clinics and what have you is huge. So I don't want to take her away from that, but I want to also let her know, and maybe you can let her know that if she needs to schedule a call to share status updates with me, morning, noon, night, whatever, I'm happy to get that on the books. And, she can just tell me and I'll type it up and then share it with in the next draft.
Okay, I will tell her.
What I can report on the second one is that the treasurer tax collector hasn't adopted either of our new forms. So my suggestion to this board is that we again make that recommendation and put it out there. While it's frustrating because having that data would be really beneficial to this board and MCTC as an organization, for 3 years we've been in crisis mode between fires and now a pandemic, and it's hard to have carry frustration for them not being able to make these integrations. So I don't know, that's just my 2 cents.
I'm in agreement with that. It's the only recommendation that I have right now for the county that I can think of, and maybe we list that as the only one and really push for it. And even if it's as far as to say, just change the form. We're not asking you to collect the data. Just change the form. The data will be there, and in future years down the line, we have time and the resources to go back and compile the data. At least we can. But I don't see any harm in just changing the form and starting to acquire the data without asking them to compile it. Anyway.
So that leads me basically to the end of the report before, or my portion of pre-writing the report, before we get to discussion about content that's there now or recommendations for MCTC or the county for the next year.
Do any of the board members have any recommendations for Section A actionable by MCTC for this upcoming fiscal year?
I mean, our role may be simplified this time around by resubmitting some of the recommendations that were unactionable, I guess, is how I'm looking at this. I don't know that there's really enough. I don't know that we can actually put together more recommendations given the circumstances we're in. I mean, I don't know. That's my first take on it. I don't. Obviously, there's going to be more deliberation, but the way I read it is, hey, we couldn't do this because of obvious reasons, but let's try it again when conditions improve. And so I would recommend that we resubmit these recommendations, with the caveat that an asterisk once conditions allow, please reconsider.
Agreed. If we have hopes that the upcoming fiscal year starting this next June will be somewhat normal and not completely occupied by a pandemic, then I agree that some of these recommendations should be included. But some of them have been achieved. Some of them maybe a little effort's gone in, and so we should go through which previous recommendations actionable by MCTC that we want to re-recommend, and same with the County of Mendocino, and also consider any new ones that other board members might have. So we have still a half an hour left. I would be okay with quickly going through the previous recommendations actionable by MCTC and determine which ones we want to re-recommend and or adjust. Is that good with the other board members? Or say, instead of a yes, is that the other board member object to that? Hearing none, let's do that then. So I guess I'll go. Obviously, number 1 was achieved. Number 2 is continuing, and in the process. So I don't feel we need to re-recommend number 2. That's my opinion.
Can I interrupt for a second? Interject here.
Go ahead, John.
It was common in the last years. Every year, there's sort of recommendations that get moved forward, and I don't know. Travis, maybe you remember, and Marcus too, how in years past we did that. Did we rewrite them? I mean, that's the question. Because if they're done, then they're done, and they're sort of there. And then if they're in process, I don't recall actually how we wrote them up, versus, ones in process, ones that push forward, and then if we have any new ones. I feel like there's almost 3 categories, Go
ahead. Sorry.
That's all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I hear you, John, and we address that in several ways. The first, actually, that's addressed in the status update of each action that we respond to this year. So if it's complete, like this number 1, that's complete, right? We've read the status update, so that falls off. It's captured in this report as completed. Number 2 is a status update. And we know where that status is. Because if it doesn't get completed by the time this report is final, it should become, it should move forward to the next year. Until that, as a recommended until it's complete. At least that's how I see we've done it in the past. Until that status update reports that's done, it needs to carry forward.
I'm in agreement rather than creating a third section of in process. I like that structure that we've done in the past.
And then and then maybe we just say that, staff continues or we address it as this needs to be completed or somehow, note that in our re-recommendation.
Hey, Cami and Travis, we could also say in the re-recommendation, originally recommended in the blah, blah, blah annual report.
Yep.
This is ongoing, da, 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 da. Does that sound good, John Dixon? Good way to structure it? Hearing nothing, I'm going to go with approval on that one. So,
A really hard time with Zoom unmuting it. I have to click like 16 times for it to come back. I don't know why. Maybe it's a shared screen thing or something. It's slow. But anyway, yes, I think referencing back, right? So that I wasn't necessarily suggesting doing like categories of pending or sort of in process rather, and then new, because to a reader next year it doesn't really matter. I think though what you're talking about referencing, back, because I'm just thinking of Wendy, who was the chair of this board for a couple of years. We changed language the same way, which said as previously recommended, blah blah blah. But I do like it to say maybe the years, as recommended last year or for the last 2 years. You know what I mean? Because that means something. If it's been on there, if it's an ongoing thing that's hard to get to, or if it's in the case of, say, somebody's just sort of not doing it, but it's still recommended, as has been recommended in the last 3 years, I think that's worth noting. That's all. That they don't all have the same weight or the same. Weight's not the right word, but you know what I mean. They read more correct when they have a history to them, I guess.
I'm in agreement, and I'm in agreement to go with that structure. Cindy, do you agree to go with that structure?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Makes sense.
John Gladwell, good for you?
Yes.
Cool. All right.
So back to number 2 then. Currently, we would carry that forward to here, this next year. And place it there until it's finished with some rewording.
Rewording in the beginning of originally recommended in this year, or recommended to something along those lines that John Dixon said. Was this, how many years now has this been on the recommendations?
Point Arena or private campgrounds?
Campgrounds, trying to get campgrounds assessed.
The first year.
It's been a couple.
No,
Really?
this is the first recommendation, because last year was the passing of the ordinance.
Ah, gotcha.
So the ordinance was passed, then a new recommendation was made to change the ordinance to include the verbiage private campgrounds.
Right.
So
I like the structure of originally recommended in the blah, blah, blah annual report versus this is the second year of recommending it. That's my preference. Does that sound okay with the other board members? Just, to start off, originally recommended in the 2021 fiscal or annual bid report.
Yep.
I read that nicely.
Great. And Travis, yeah, you get the gist of what we're doing. So if we trust you to word it the necessary way.
And I'm going to remove the status update clearly because that's not going to be. And then it needs to, let me do comment. Okay.
All right. So moving on to recommendation 3, actionable by MCTC. Is this something, Travis, that would be something that might realistically happen in the next coming fiscal year, or does this board want to re-recommend this? Any board members have input on that? Because to me, this seems like this is once back to normal operating. This, in my opinion, would then be something we would look into, but it's not.
And that was the acknowledgement of the board is basically like, these times this isn't appropriate for now. Mm-hmm. We will undertake this when it is an appropriate time to look at,
Right. I mean, the only significant thing in this is that if it were to be explored and approved, it would give VMC a longer term, a 3 to 5 year, 5 year contract, which would give longevity, which is important.
Well, part of this was of the MCTC conversation was, is it appropriate to do this now? The exploration process, and start this before the county is even at, the county staff has no time to even have this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that we can hire Civitas to have this discussion at any time, but what are the implications on the county team for having this conversation?
Do any board members feel we want to re-recommend this?
I have a comment. Would it behoove us to recommend this item in a way that asks us to table it for another year so it doesn't fall off the report altogether?
I don't see why not. We could put wording in it that we're re-recommending it, but we understand that it's to be addressed at a time when appropriate, whatever wording we come up with.
Yeah, or when revenue streams recover, or something along those lines, or even just as simple as this board recommends that the MCTC staff and board of directors postpone working with Civitas advisors until this time, or something along those lines. Just so that we're recommending that they don't act on it, but that it will obviously be something for us to reconsider next year, yeah, or this board to consider next year.
Yeah, Travis, something like we recommend that you keep this in consideration for the future, but understand it might not be actionable in this current fiscal year. Something like that.
Okay.
Travis, do you still have oh, sorry, I was just going to ask, Travis, do you still have an interest in seeing that be considered in the future?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. After we discussed it, I remember last year, it just makes sense. And obviously it's not really appropriate right now, but I would just hate for us to lose sight of all the discussion we've had on this topic.
I think we all agree with you, John.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to number 4, unless anyone has anything else to say about number 3. And number 4 is in progress, yes?
Number 4.
Or is,
I mean, we could basically, this is complete because we haven't developed the plan. Let's see, we'll work it to extend the strategic plan to slated to expire to a new, well, we actually went even further because we are creating a whole new 3-year plan, not just an extension.
so that was just a Band-Aid for last year.
Right. And we decided, since we have all of this downtime right now that we're not actually actively marketing, that it would be totally appropriate to, sorry, hey, Isabel, lock it up. Sorry. That we would just undertake the whole 3-year strategic plan.
So do you have a suggestion as to a recommendation that might come from this board to assist with that for the new fiscal year?
There's no assistance necessary.
Okay.
You know, I could report back again, you know, like we did with number 1, to say that it is actually completed and deployed at XYZ date.
Maybe Travis, actually, 'cause I'm the kind of guy that does like to skim through and find the bullet and bold things. Perhaps if there is a recommendation that has been achieved, after status update, the first word is, or the first thing is recommendation achieved, and then the description of when it was and how it was.
So why don't we just keep this as a yellow that we'll come back to pending progress.
Okay.
We're set to basically deploy that strategic plan about the time this report gets submitted or approved. So rather than beating it up, let's hold it to the end.
I'm okay with that.
Does the rest of the board agree?
It's fine.
Okay, moving on to number
Yes.
5. Is that something you foresee potentially happening realistically in the upcoming fiscal year, Travis?
No, because I don't think it's going to be appropriate in the next fiscal year to really market group travel.
Okay.
You know, people coming here on buses.
Yeah. All right. Any input from the other boards on that one? Board members?
I guess, am I allowed to be optimistic that maybe it will be appropriate?
You are allowed to be optimistic. And potentially by the end of the next fiscal year, which will be, well, you know, March, April, May of 2022, that might happen. But
I mean, maybe the right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. I'll add something if I think of it.
Right, so we're talking about a year and a half from now, pretty much, right?
Right.
Would this go through? And then, so there's that, the timing of that. And since we don't know, maybe the planning, without spending too much money or time on it, is, you know, to be prepared for it if it does loosen up, say, this fall, which will be within this report's, you know, it's only an annual report. So given that, you know, again, I don't know that it's worth spending too much money on or how we word it here, but maybe just saying, planning ahead for the potential of it, and also how to reopen is probably an important point, or how to market it is something that the you know, PR folks and marketing folks and that Travis is going to work on. But maybe that's the planning that needs to be done, not just what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, but how it might be done, given the current situation, something like that.
So one thing to think about with this recommendation that I want to remind everybody of is we basically cut this organization completely back to nothing and we're starting over. So are we going to make a recommendation about a sales department this year? Or are we going to make a recommendation about the direction of the regrowth of the organization as a whole? And would that larger recommendation include a sales department or not? You know, this group has the opportunity this year.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I think, Marcus, are you seeing Travis is frozen?
Oh, I thought I was the one who lost internet.
No, I think
Is
No.
everyone else?
Yeah,
I think
same.
Travis.
Oh, I'll text him.
We go back to its former model of
back.
an organization that hires contractors and writes reports.
Sorry, Travis, you froze for most of that.
Sorry.
So you could repeat that.
So let me start over, I guess. What I think is important for this group to think about this year is that, you know, we're rebuilding an organization, not just a department.
Mhm.
What recommendations do you want to make as an advisory board on the rebuild of the organization rather than just a department within that organization? And that goes to an even larger level of, do we want Visit Mendocino County and MCTC to be an organization that does its own marketing, that markets in-house with a team on the ground? Or do we want to be an organization that hires contractors and writes reports?
So Travis, I presume that when as things started getting back to normal and strong and revenue started coming in, that you had spent your first year and a half, 2 years now restructuring the organization to be something that the MCTC board and the bid advisory board helped cultivate to. And I just presume that you were going to make efforts to go kind of back to that structure. And then this was the sales team thing was an additional component of that. Is that not the case? Is the MCTC board and you taking this opportunity to be like, hey, maybe when we can build this back up, we do it a little differently. And then what would your recommendations be different from how it was going before?
Yeah, I think that MCTC, the board, and myself are taking this opportunity to completely reassess, rather than just small chunks at a time, how we rebuild the organization and what we really want it to look like. And the direction that we're taking at this point is that we've got some strong creative team, a strong creative team going right now, and that we should expand upon that rather than, you know, hiring another marketing.
Froze for me. Is
Yeah,
anyone else
froze
still there?
for me too. Yeah.
Okay. We don't have a little chat. We don't have a chat bar, do we? How do we get a chat bar on this?
No, I've been missing the chat bar.
No. Travis,
I think
can
you're
you hear
back,
us?
Travis.
We lost you again. And we were wondering also, though, well, I don't know if this was a question for you or the county staff of if it's possible to put a chat bar in, and just in case, you know, we could quickly.
I imagine it's not. Maybe she can respond there, but I imagine it's not because it's not part of the permanent record potentially. Just like the thumbs up and things, as you know, agreements and whatnot. Thumbs up maybe don't record.
You're probably right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm too new to really know. I'm sorry.
I could presume that's the case. You know, communication without going on official record, even though this is being recorded on video between the boards, probably isn't the best. Between the board members isn't the best way to go. Okay, so what I'm hearing, Travis, then is it your recommendation that you want to restructure with bringing as much in-house as possible? Is that standard DMO practice for our type of DMO? And is that in fact what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting. Whether it's blanket statement standard, not necessarily. Is it because of the talent that we have on staff? Is it probably the best move financially in the long term, in the short term and the long term for the organization to get the most bang for its buck? Absolutely.
So then it might behoove us to include some of these, if the board agrees with your direction, then to include some of this direction and recommendations in this report. Yes. But that's, I mean, this sounds like a lot of information of direction to go. So, and, I would know, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of experience with marketing. I mean, I wouldn't know if we could get the same quality of marketing from an in-house team that was on salary versus a contractor who uses multiple, who uses a whole organization to market for us. Like questions like that automatically jump to my mind. So it kind of opens up a can of worms. But is that standard DMO structure for an organization our size?
Well, I addressed that in my last response. Do I think that it's standard as a blanket statement? No. Do I think that this organization has the talent to do this? Absolutely. Do I think that it's the best financial move for the organization in both the short and long term? 100%.
So are you and the MCTC board creating a roadmap to get to this?
Well, we will be. At this point, it's still new because of the pandemic. We've had this opportunity to even host the conversation, and that conversation is going to go further at our annual meeting.
Okay. Do any board members have any suggestions as to or recommendations that might want to be included in this report that fall along the lines of what we've just learned?
No, I think I share, Marcus, some of your questions, and I think it's important just to have more information, and certainly not opposed to considering any of that. And Travis, as you're saying that, you really firmly believe that this would benefit the organization, it'd be great to have some details to say, here's why it would make more financial sense. This is what it would cost for us to rehire Theory or another firm versus what for us to do here. And, I don't know then if it would be appropriate to say, here is our proposed marketing strategy versus what another firm might propose or what. But maybe there are a lot of questions still that need to be answered that will be addressed when the annual meeting happens with the MCTC board.
Sure, and just to give you a little bit more, because we were preparing for the next fiscal year when the pandemic took hold, MCTC structured its marketing plan for the year based on marketing in-house. So those changes have already been addressed and approved back in March and submitted to the county. And discussed, at the board level of MCTC extensively. And the budget that they're directing me to build this year does not include a marketing agency because of, so far, the small amount of marketing that we've done, the return on investment for that digital marketing has far surpassed what we paid for with our marketing firm or digital advertising buyer.
Okay. Well, given that we have just a few minutes left, I'll say that rather than include direction in this report of what will happen, the structure of EMC and the direction, rather than include recommendations in this report along those lines, I'll trust that the MCTC board and Travis Scott and staff work on that and figure out the best way to rise from the ashes. And so I guess it would be my point to say that then let's not spend any more time trying to figure out if we want to put a recommendation like that in there or along those lines, and let's just continue on with the report if other board members are all right with that.
Sounds good.
I think so. And because we are running out of time, I'm not going to extend it as we talked about at the top. But, I wonder if there's another opportunity in the next meeting for us to go away, in this next 2 weeks. We talked about having a meeting second and fourth Wednesday or whatever it is, to meet. And maybe that's what the next topic of the next meeting is. I'm not sure, is recommendations, if there are any. And I know, we're running out of time here, but I can think of a couple maybe, that are related to sort of where we are with the pandemic and what the bid advisory board might want to see from the organization and how it maybe handles that, something like that. I mean, there can be new ones, even though we are sort of in a wait and hold like everything is. But I guess my question is, to your point, Marcus, now about what recommendations we might want to make or change or reword or whatever, and then new ones, is that something maybe for next meeting?
I think, yeah, we're in the early stages of developing this report, so we still have plenty of time to address those potentially in the next meeting. Is everyone okay? And I'll say, if we can, we've got 2 minutes left. Let's, Travis, if you could take notes of where we left off here, and we could just pick that up in the next meeting and finish reviewing the recommendations we want to re-recommend and consider any new recommendations once we've gotten more information. And I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. If anyone else has objection to that, please say so now. Hearing none, move on to approval of the draft minutes from the December 14th meeting. And John, you did point out that you were not present during roll call, therefore not listed on the roll call, but you were present for the majority of the meeting. And I think it's important that we take note of that for anybody looking back at the minutes.
Absolutely. In my notes, I had written down when he arrived and was going to put that in there, and I apologize, so it didn't get in there, but I will.
No worries. Is standard structure for that just to list it in there wherever the time wherever we were in the agenda?
John Dixon arrived at, I think it was 1:22, but I have to look at my notes.
Okay. Yeah, if we can amend those minutes, we won't approve them in this meeting. We'll take a look at them at the next meeting and approve them then once those changes have been made. Is that all right with everybody? Yep, hearing no objection to that.
Sorry, it sounded like you were asking something, but I think maybe my audio cut out, and then I didn't know what you said, so I'm sorry.
Just no one objecting to approving the minutes from December 14th in the next meeting once the proposed changes have been made.
Great. Yeah, no objection.
Yep, okay. No objections.
Fine.
All right. And any matters from the advisory board? Hearing none.
No, just in meetings that we've been having lately, we have a puppy show up at the end of the meetings, but I guess that's not necessarily going to happen today, but I'll be okay. It's okay.
Well, you can see the bottom corner of my screen in the orange.
Travis has got a puppy.
How about that?
Oh, there we go. Well done, Marcus. Well done.
There you go, Marcus.
I try.
Okay.
My avatar.
Before we adjourn, I just want to make sure that I have no action items for the next meeting, correct?
Just to take the notes that we've given in this meeting and make the necessary changes. But other than that.
And so you want another draft of this prior to the next meeting with the few small changes that we made, or are we willing to get all of our recommendations in line and then do another draft?
I would suggest if you can, make all the changes that we've gone through today and submit if time
I
permits.
just want direction, that's all. So I make sure I'm doing what you guys want.
I prefer that you go through and make all the changes that we've addressed today, and then so we don't readdress them in the next meeting, and because it's kind of just an evolving report. And so yes, make the changes, resend the draft out for us to review prior to the next meeting.
Okay.
And then
Is that something? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, and then if there's anything else that's updated before then as well, maybe the feedback from the county on those recommendations, if that's possibly going to come in that time, and then anything else that might happen. But I think what I was going to say is there's two considerations on doing another draft for next meeting. We can probably get done quicker overall, but also it's just 2 weeks away. So it's just the other consideration is, Travis's time. And if you have time to do that versus sort of coming back to continuing where we are, bring our recommendations, then and then maybe next meeting looking at the whole thing as opposed to sort of doing it as a revolving. So I'm open to both. It kind of depends on those two criteria.
Travis?
I have the time. I will make the time. Excuse me. But the thing is that that time is because we're meeting every 2 weeks. And when this has to be to the county to get posted and all of that stuff, it really backs us up. If I could do a draft once a month, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Or at least this time around, I would appreciate that. Because I don't know what I'm going to have in 9 days, 8 days to send to the county. That's other than the small changes we talked about today.
Okay. And Travis, I want you to feel completely comfortable with that at any time is heavy. Our of course, hopefully this is shared by all the board members, is that the majority of your time is spent, doing the job that you were hired to do and not all the legwork necessary for so much for this report. So if it is, if your preference would be for us to just use this report again, then
let's go with, if we could do that this time, I would really appreciate it. And then let's reassess at the end of the next meeting, see our progress. And if, then if it deems a report, a new draft, let's do a new draft. That's no problem.
Sounds good. And then also you said the annual meeting of the MCTC board is going to happen before our next meeting?
Yes, it's next week.
Okay. So I'd recommend any of the bid advisory board members to attend if possible. Will that be possible?
Yeah, it's a public meeting.
Yeah, and then if you do get any further direction on the restructuring of your organization, bring that information to our next meeting.
Yep, will do.
Great. All right.
Can you share with us how to join that, maybe individually, since it's a board thing?
Yeah,
but
when that is posted on Monday, I will
okay.
send a link to each of you as bid advisory members.
And Travis, can we get that from now on until the report's finalized? Maybe invites to all the MCTC board meetings. Is that possible?
Per your request, they have changed to not conflict with any other supervisors meeting, and they are the second Thursday of every month.
I know, but is it possible that I request getting an email invite?
Yes, I'm just giving
for the next, for the next meetings for the.
Yes, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Ah, okay.
Second Thursday. Got it.
Second Thursday, 2 p.m.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Any matters from the advisory board, from any of the board members? Hearing John?
Nope.
Oh, I was going towards number 7 already.
It is. So we're a little over, but we started late. Okay. Then move to adjourn. Do we have to, is that a motion? I forget. Or do we just adjourn?
No, we had to, I'll make a motion.
All right. I'll
I
second.
will second.
Oh, John Gladwell seconds.
I beat you. I beat you.
You did. So motion by John Dixon, John Gladwell second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Travis.
Happy New Year.
Bye,
Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
Take care.
Bye-bye.